class, we are discussing about the various stages of the event synchronization. So event synchronization means the controlling the operations. So there are mainly 4 operations are there in IPC, that is connect, disconnect, send, receive. So these are the 4 main operations is associated with the IPC, and how these events are managed, how these events are controlled. That will be maintained in event synchronization. There are mainly 2 types of operations, synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous means blocking operation. It is on the issuance of the any event. For example, if you issue the receive operation and the event occurs, on issuance of that event, if the execution is blocked or execution is terminated for a particular period of time, then that is known as the synchronous operation. And on the issuance of the operation or event does not cause the process to terminate its execution. Then such operations are known as the asynchronous, non-blocking. So that based on this synchronous and asynchronous, we divide it into 4 different cases. This synchronous send, synchronous receive. Then second one, asynchronous send and synchronous receive. Third one, synchronous send and synchronous and asynchronous receive. And the fourth one, both are asynchronous. So I explained in detail about these operations in the first cases. Let me explain in brief in this class. So synchronous send, synchronous receive. Here the process 1 and process 2 are executing. Process 2 is waiting for the data and it is ready for receive. They are blocking receive because of the synchronous operation. The execution, the event occurs here, receive event, then the blocking takes place. Then it will terminate the execution of that particular process. Then it will continue once it get the complete data. Similarly, on the other hand, in the process 1, here the process 1 which gets the request for data from the process 2, then it will start sending data. Once the sending operation starts, then it will also enter into the blocking stage. So it will remain in the blocking stage until it gets the acknowledgement from the process 2 after receiving the complete data. So process 2 is also in the blocking stage until it gets the complete data. Okay, that is about the first case, synchronous send and synchronous receive. Now in the second case, asynchronous send and synchronous receive. Asynchronous send and synchronous receive. So in this case, the sending operation or the sending process is the non-blocking. It will remain in the blocking stage. Remain in the unblocking stage. Even though it will start the sending operation, it will not enter into the blocking stage. And the receiving process is the blocking stage because of synchronous receive. And here the process issues the receive operation in this case, and it will enter into the blocking stage. Once the data is completely received, it will continue its execution. It will terminate from the blocking stage and resume its execution. But here acknowledgement will not be transferred like the previous case, because the acknowledgement is required only when the sending process is also in the blocking stage. Then it will wait for the acknowledgement. Otherwise, it is not. It will not wait for the acknowledgement because it is not in the blocking stage. Okay, now the third case, the synchronous send and asynchronous receive, which has the 3 scenarios. In the first one, process 1 already started sending the data and entered into the blocking stage, but process 2 is not ready to receive it. What is the example that I have given? Yeah, same, mobile data. Your mobile data is turned off. Your friend already sent the messages, but you did not receive the message because your mobile data is turned off. As soon as you will turn on the mobile data, then you will get all the messages immediately. Here, after some time, the process to issue the receive operation, then it will return send an acknowledgement, and automatically acknowledgement will be transferred because it will wait. Process one wait for the acknowledgement because it is in the blocking stage. It is in the blocking stage, so that's why it will wait for the acknowledgement. Okay, now the second case, here process 2 issues the receive operation and return immediately before the process 1 starts sending data. That means you woke up early in the morning and switch on the internet and you turn off the internet immediately. But after some time, your friend starts texting you. But you did not turn on your internet, but you are doing other work. Then whether you will get the message? No. But your friend is waiting for your response, that is acknowledgement. Your friend is in the blocking stage. So this case is known as the indefinite blocking. So this operation, indefinite blocking, can be solved if the process 2 invoke the receive operation. That means you, as and when after some time, you may switch on your internet. So after the some time, you can switch on the internet, then you will get the message. Then you can send the acknowledgement will be passed. That operation, invoking the same operations again and again, is known as the polling. That is in the case of this is the scenario. Okay, now in the fourth case, both the operations are non-blocking. Here it is sending data, continuous work, and here it is in the receiving information, issue the receive operation, and it will also continue with the other work. So that independent blocking can be solved if you apply the timeouts, or you can also use the threaded programming concept. You can apply the timeouts. So for example, if you limit the time to the 5 milliseconds like that, to limit the time, then what happens after 5 seconds, then it will return from the blocking stage. It will again ask the same question. Or if you use the threading concept, then the threading can be used. In that case, you can allow the thread to handle the only blocking operation. You can allow the thread to handle the blocking operation. Okay. Now, another concept is the deadlock that occurs when the process 1 waits for the resource from the process 2. Similarly, process 2 is waiting for resources from process 1, but both the process will not get the data. Both the process will not get the data because both are requesting from each other. So that it will enter into the indefinite blocking. So that can also be solved if you apply the timeout. Okay, now let me continue the data representation. So your IPC, inter-process communication, the process are transferring the information from one end to the another end, that is sender to the receiver. But there should be a uniform standard maintained, so that data sent by the sender must be identified by the receiver. For example, in general, that we are talking and we are communicating. So whatever the information that you are giving in your language, that must be understandable to your friend. So then only the communication occurs. Otherwise, what happens? The communication gap will be there. Okay, consider an example. Two process. The process 1 on the host 1, the host A, and process 2 on host B. But if you use the different notations, Little Indian and the Big Indian notations, that is a different to architecture that is used. In general, the 16-bit or 13-bit is used. If the process 1 uses the 16-bit configuration and process B uses the 32-bit. Okay, this is the process A and this is the process B, and this is the A, the B. Suppose it uses the 16-bit representation and it uses the 32. Two different bit informations are used. But you need to start communicating. Should transfer the information from one end to the another end. Then what we need to do? If you send as it is as a 16-bit representation, then it will not understand. There will be three different steps. The first step, convert the data. That is, convert the data to the 32-bit and then send the data. Convert and send. Convert the information to the receiving format. Whatever the format that is used. For example, convert the data to the 32-bit representation. Then transfer the data. Is it clear? Second one, send the data as it is in the sender format. Send the data in the sending format, but while receiving it, convert it to the receiving format. Is it clear? And the third one, make use of the external representation. Make use of external representation. So these are the three standards used. First one, convert the data. Here only you convert, then transfer the data. That is the first case. Second case, you send the data as it is. Whatever the representation that is used by the sending side, send the data as it is. But while receiving the data, what we need to do? Convert it to the receiving format. Third one, make use of the external intermediator. For example, suppose you are going to somewhere in the Tamil Nadu. You do not understand the Tamil and they do not understand Kannada. What we need to do? You get a person who can understand both the language. Then you can tell to that person, intermediator. Then the intermediator, what he will do? He will convert it into Tamil and he will tell it to the Tamil. Then Tamilian will speak in Tamil. Then the intermediator listen to it and convert it to Kannada and he will inform you. That is the case. These are the three steps, three main steps that is used in the data representation. 16-bit value sent will need not be truncated. Here it is, the three steps. Prior to issuing a send operation, the process 1 converts the value of the integer to the 16-bit little endian representation of process 2. That is the one standard that in example you have considered. You can consider any other standard. The second one, process 1 send the data as it is. Upon receiving the process 2, convert it to the its representation. The third scheme, make use of the external representation. Okay. The data contains the different data types. The data packets are transmitted, so which contain the different data types and its values are used, but it has different operations associated with. So it will perform the data marshalling. Data marshalling means serializing the data structures and converting the data values to the external operation. So data marshalling is used to the context of IPC to refer to the processing necessary to transmit the data values and the data structure. So the different operations are there. For example, if you use any one object are used, the class student object used. What are the values are there in the student object? The student object which contains the what it contains? Student object name, roll number, marks, result. And what are the operations? The result calculation. The different operations are there. So that what it will do, data marshalling, that will like a encode the data to a particular standard. While receiving end, it will decode the data. That means it will flatten whatever the data structure values are encoded, that will be converted into its normal values. So serializing the data structure and converting the data values to the external representations. Then there is a standard used for the communication, that you know it, ASN.1, abstract syntax notation .1 standard. So that is the standard that is used throughout the internet for communicating from one end to the another end. Okay, now data encoding. There are different data encoding standards, data operations, whatever the data packets are transmitted, that is transmitted in encoded standard that cannot be accessed by the unauthorized user. There are different encoding standards are used. That is from the high level to the low level of abstraction. In the low level, it has the data representation. This XDR, external data representation, that is the low level. Next, after that, it uses the ASN, abstract syntax notation, that is the general data encoding language is used. Next, in the web pages, for creating using HTML or XML, extensible markup language, that is the application specific. For example, you are paying through the online, the debit card, credit card, or the online bank account, etc. They will use are different, but all the informations are encoded. It will not be accessed by the unauthorized user. Sometimes the hacker will hack it. Okay, so that is the universal platform independent scheme that is required. Platform independent means it will not depend on any particular platform. If you are accessing using the one operating system, Android, then you can same access another Windows, or you can use the Linux or Unix. It's a different operating system that can be used. So these are the different encoding standards. So this is one of the XML, the notations that you use, that you learn in detail in the web development. Okay, it's about data encoding. These are the three standards that is used in the network data representation. The network data representation standard, XDR, external representation, that will perform the data marshalling and unmarshalling. Data marshalling means it will combining together all the data values and its operations. The different data structure, all the values are combined and it transmitted in a encoded file. Unmarshalling means serializing the data structure. What are the values? It is recreating the values. Okay, now next topic is the different protocols that we use, the text based and the request based response protocol. These are the different protocols we can use to transfer text: FTP, HTTP, SMTP, the different protocol that is used in the communication, network communication, to transfer the information from one end to the another end. Next is the request response protocol. The one of the main request response protocol is the HTTP. Like the internet, if you are using the here the HTTP, the file informations. Here HTTPS, that is the protocol is used here. The request, sending the request for the Google, or the here it is, I open the YouTube server, here the Google server. So here request will be transferred, then it will get the response and it will transfer back to the browser. Okay, now the very important topic, event and sequence diagram. Okay, what do you event? Event means there are different operations are there, like the send event, send operation, receive operation, connect operation. The event means the issuance of that operation will be termed as the event. That means when you remove the send operation, then it occurs the send event. There are two types of diagram. That is very important. It will come for 2 marks. Very simple. Use the two different notations for drawing the event and the sequence diagram. So in the event diagram, we use the two notations for a execution flow. The blocked operations are indicated by dotted or dashed line, and the execution flow is indicated by the solid line. This is the interprocess communication. So this solid line indicates execution flow. Dotted line indicates block period. Solid line indicates execution flow. This dotted line indicates the blocked period. So here, process 1 send the request, then execution started here, then the execution terminated, then here it is send the response. Once it receive the response, then it will continue the execution, then the execution is blocked here. So like this, we can use the diagrammatic representation. So these types of diagrammatic representations are known as the event diagram. The execution flow and the block period. So that will be execution flow and the blocked period. So will be indicated in a different notation. Is it clear? Here it is. The solid line interval along the execution line representation the time period, the time period, and the broken line interval represent the process block. Okay, now what about this sequence diagram? So this is an event diagram for the HTTP session that you already studied the beginning of this chapter only. There is a web browser and a web server. For example, this is the web browser, Google Chrome that I am using. Now the web server, there is no execution. As soon as I send the information, it will enter into the blocking state. Now I requested something, but due to network error, I unable to connect. So it is in the blocked period, right? Until I get the response, or until I get the reply from the Gmail server. So web browser that I requested, and I entered into the blocking stage. Now the execution takes place in the server. Once it gets the response, then only I can continue the work. Otherwise, I cannot continue the work. Okay, now the sequence diagram. So in this type of diagrammatic notations, we don't use that two representation. So all the operations are indicated as the dash or the dotted line. Here it is a dotted line, the response, then response 1, request 1, response 2. Response. But you can observe here it is indicated execution flow, here execution flow, here it is the blocking. But here there will be no such indication about the execution flow and the blocking. Is it clear? This is a very important topic, event and the sequence diagram. The execution flow of each participant protocol is represented as a dashed line or does not differentiate between the states of the blocked and the execution. Each message exchanged between the two sides are shown using the directed line between the dashed line. So here, there will be no solid line and the dashed line in the case of the sequence diagram. To write this diagram as an example, this is another example for event diagram, and this is the example for the sequence diagram. Okay, now I will move to the next topic. That is the last topic of this chapter as well as this unit. That's the evolution paradigms for IPC. So evolution, that is how the journey started of this IPC interprocess. For example, evolution of computer that you might have studied in the FIT subject. Evolution of computer, personal computers or mainframe, time sharing, like that, the supercomputers. That is a different evolution. Similarly, now what is the paradigm? Paradigm means a model. Paradigm means a model. So here evolution of model, that is the creation of the different models for IPC. How the journey starts. Okay, there will be based on the level of abstraction that I already mentioned. Level of abstraction. The abstraction means how it will hide the implementation part to the user. How it will hide the implementation part from the user. For example, if you use the procedure oriented C and if you use the object oriented C++, then there must be the difference between that two. Because all the information in the C may be the global one, the data can be easily moved from one end to the another end, so that the level of abstraction is very less. And if you use the C++ programming, then if the concept of objects comes, then data is bind together in class, that is encapsulation concept. Data cannot be easily transmitted from one end to the another end. Suppose if we use another one, purely object oriented, Java. So it has the more level of abstraction. So that is the case. So here level of abstraction, this is the level of abstraction is high, then it is low. The level of abstraction is low data transmission, that is serial and parallel communication. By bit the data are transmitted. Serial means one bit at a time, parallel means all the bits at a time, data transmission. Then the socket APIs are used. The different sockets, that is the unique socket API, like the telephone communications that we are very familiar. Different sockets are used, and through that socket we can start communicating. The high level that comes, that I already told, that is the Java RMI, remote procedure call, or Java RMI, or the object spaces. That it will study in detail in the third chapter. So this is the basic model, evolution of paradigms of inter-process communication. So remote procedure call and the remote method, RMI means remote method invocation. So here it will use the different techniques of the Java, and the level of abstraction is more in the case of RMI. So this is at the least abstraction. IPC knows the data transmission as a binary stream over a connection using low level CL or parallel data transfer. That is the lower level. Next level, which uses the different well-known paradigms of socket application. Using socket paradigms, the two processes exchange the data. That is using the socket. Once the connection is established, then the two ends can start communicating. That we'll study in the fourth chapter. At the highest level, the remote procedure call or the RMI, remote procedure provides the further abstraction, allowing process to make procedure calls or method invocation to the remote process. What do you mean by remote or local term? The remote means not the remote that you are using for the TV or etc. So remote process or the remote resources. For example, to my system, the other resources that belongs to this system will become the local. And if I access your resources, for example, the two systems are connected, then the resources of the another system that become remote to me. So that is the remote process procedure call or remote method invocation that provide the high level of data abstraction. Okay, student, this is about the chapter 1 and 2. That is about the first unit. In this unit, we studied about the various topics like the different topics, the history of the distributed computing that we studied, then the different forms of computing. What are the different forms of computing? Monolithic computing, distributed computing, parallel computing, cooperative computing. Then the strengths and weakness of the distributed computing, affordability of computers and network access, fault tolerance, scalability, resource sharing, drawback, multiple points of failure, security concern. That is the strength and weakness. Then the process state diagram, 5 states, start, that is the new, ready, block, running. The different the state, then terminated as another one. Then the concurrent programming that can be achieved 3 types. Concurrent programming within a single computer, concurrent process executing in single computer, concurrent process executing multiple computer, concurrent programming within a process. That can be achieved by parent and child process and the threads. Then the difference between the connection oriented and connectionless communication, the difference. Then the IPv4 addressing scheme that we studied in the general format of URL. Then the XNS. Next about archetypal IPC program interface, that is architecture. This is the architecture of the distributed application, 3-layer: presentation layer, application layer, service logic layer. Then the HTTP session, that is the unicast and multicast, that is the chapter 2 concept. Then the explanation related to the HTTP session. In the event synchronization, there are 2 types, blocking and non-blocking, and 4 different cases that we studied here. The third case that will come for the 8 marks. And after that we studied about the timeouts and threading. Then we studied about deadlocks and timeouts. Then the data representation, how the data is represented, and there will be 3 different standards used. On the first step is the convert the data to the receiving standard, then send the data. Second one, receive the data as it is from the sender side and convert it the receiving end. Third one, make use of the external representation. Next, the difference between event diagram and the sequence diagram. You can, if I come for the more marks, then you should give the detailed example. The event diagram, there will be the differentiation such as the blocked operation and execution flow. The sequence diagram, there is no such notations. All the execution of the process that is maintained in the dotted line only. Now the evolution of paradigms, there are 3 different ways of levels based on the level of abstraction. That is, at the low level it has the data transmission, that is the serial and the parallel communication. Next, at the above to that, it will use the socket API. Then it has the remote method invocation or the remote procedure call. So this is about the unit 1, and go through the important topics and go through the previous question papers, and I will circulate this PDF, and you can read well for the examinations, and I will continue the second unit, that is the third chapter in the next class.